Agudavach. This would have been given over in Shul, Parshas Tazriah Metzorah, in the 93rd Shul. But being that we are currently going through the coronavirus crisis, and we are davening the Yechidus and everybody's staying home, so I figured the best way to share this would be probably virtually, either before or after Shabbos. Tonight is beis iyar, so we'll start with the story of the Rebbe Marash. The Rebbe one time said by Farbrengen that his grandfather, I believe it was Rabbi Meir Shlomo Yanofsky, was a zitzer by the Rebbe Marash. The Rebbe explained that a zitzer was someone, as the custom was in those days, that after the chassan would bid farewell to his family and go spend a certain amount of time sitting, zitzing, and learning and davening in the presence of the Rebbe. They would travel, go to the Rebbe, and spend time learning by him. And the Rebbe pointed out that contrary to the minhag today, where people after the chasana pack up their stuff and go on a honeymoon to Hawaii or to other places where they don't necessarily have a mikveh, don't necessarily have access to kosher food, and a minyan, just the difference, the way things were done then and now. But anyhow, when the Rebbe's grandfather came back to town, everybody gathered around and they wanted to hear what happened by the Rebbe Marash. And so he explained at great length what was the goings on by the Rebbe Marash. All the Rebbe Marash has been hugging, but he also explained the greatest shidus displayed by the Rebbe Marash. And it's known that the Rebbe Marash used to travel around in a very fancy wagon drawn by 4 white horses, which would probably be the equivalent of a Bentley or a Tesla or something like that today. And the Rebbe Marash had gold chains and used to wear a very fancy gold watch, and in general displayed a lot of great wealth. While he was telling this over, so somebody in the town turns to the Rebbe's grandfather and says, "I don't understand. Why is he spending so much money on himself? Wouldn't this money be better spent given to tzedakah?" So the Rebbe's grandfather answered this person, "Petach, petach, fool, fool. Who do you think the Ashidus was created for? Was it created for me, or perhaps was it created for you? Obviously not. The great wealth was created obviously for the Rebbe." And the Rebbe explained this, saying this coincides with the Maimer Chazal, that gold and silver and all worldly things in this world were created only for the sake of the Beis Hamikdash. Gold and silver and diamonds and all beauty things in this world are only created for the sake of the Beis Hamikdash. So one of the primary messages of Chassidus is that this world, where godliness is concealed, where there's a hell and v'hester, everything in this world has to be used as a vehicle, as a tool, to make this world a dir b'tachtenim. And therefore, gold and silver and money and all other physical enjoyments are only justified to be used if they're used in the pursuit of making a dir b'tachtenim. And anything that is short of that, then you're misusing gold and silver and all worldly pleasures. Now, if there was anybody that was never an advocate for Yidden to have money, it was obviously the Rebbe. We know the Meis of the Alter Rebbe one time said that the Mashiach the Yidden are hoping for, that would come take them out of their financial troubles, the Mashiach's going to come and all of a sudden give them money, may never arrive. But the Rebbe said, our Rebbe said, when Mashiach comes, we're going to go with gold and silver and our homes and all our physical possessions to Yerushalayim. And it's known, the Yechidus that the Rebbe had with the Kapishnitzh Rebbe, where the Rebbe spent a lot of time arguing, so to say, with the Kapishnitzh Rebbe, who was concerned about Yidden having wealth, and then Yisraelis that could follow it. And the Rebbe said, no, Yidden have to have wealth. But Gashmias Yidden have to be wealthy. And we know that the Rebbe was upset during the Purim Farbrengen, where he said, whoever wants to have money, raise your hand. The Rebbe was upset that more people didn't raise their hand. However, the Rebbe still always reminds us that this money only belongs to us when used in the proper way. And the Rebbe, at a Yudalaf Nissen Farbrengen, I believe it was Tavshan Lamed Vav, explained the pasuk in Kehelis that says, "Oisher shamur lebaylav l'ra'asei." Money to its baylav, to its owner, will be to its detriment. And the Rebbe explained this, that the Gemara says about this, that this is Dafka talking about the wealth of Kairach. Kairach was a wealthy man, and look where he ended up. But the Rebbe says, no, the answer to that is in the pasuk itself. Oisha shomer libailov, when the person thinks that he is the bail of the money, that he's the person in charge, he's the bail, it's his money, he's the true owner of the money, so then it's going to be l'reaseh. But Kol Zman, a person realizes that he's only a shliach of the Eibishter, and the reason why the Eibishter gave him this money is for him to use it to further Yiddishkeit and to further Torah mitzvahs and to make this place a dir b'tachtenim for the Eibishter. So then, if he's using the money in the right context, then adarabba v'adarabba, he's using the money for the right purpose. It's not going to be to his detriment. I heard a story recently about a guy who didn't grow up a Lubavitcher Chassid, learned in Litvish yeshivas, and there they didn't have such an emphasis on making brachas before eating. But then when he came to Lubavitch, he saw that it wasn't necessarily right what he was doing and decided that he's going to be more careful about making brachas on food. And next time he went into the Rebbe for Yechidus, he wanted to ask the Rebbe for a tikkun for this, that in his earlier years he wasn't careful about making brachas. So he wrote, when he went to Yechidus, he wrote a settle, and he told the Rebbe that he's asking for a tikkun on this, that he didn't make brachas, and he was expecting the Rebbe to give him some tikkun or other. And he was surprised that the Rebbe responded. The Rebbe was visibly shaken. And the Rebbe responded loudly, how could a Yid put food into his mouth without making a bracha? Chazal tell us that if somebody eats something without making a bracha, it's as if he's stealing from the Eibishter. How could a person steal from the Eibishter? It's interesting over here to point out that the Rebbe didn't focus necessarily on the halacha or the aveda aspect of it, but on this fact that everything in the world belongs to the Eibishter. How could somebody take something and misuse it? Like we said earlier, that gold and silver and all other spiritual things, physical things, were given only for us. We only have the right to use them if we're using them in the right context. So was hat es zu tun? It's a nice word, but it's a little bit random, one might say. So this week I was in the car. I believe it was on Wednesday, and I've learned while listening to the radio that Wednesday, April 22nd, is Earth Day. Now, I don't know exactly what Earth Day is, but I'm sure it has something to do with the Earth, as that it has it in its name. And that Earth Day is not necessarily a Yom Tov that Yidden would celebrate, because we know that Chassidus and Sifrim brought down in Ayem Yom that the difference between a Yid, a human, and a behema, a Yid and a behema, is that a Yid has a shaykhus with elikus. He stands upright and he can see the heavens, see something that's more spiritual, contrary to behemoths that walk on all fours and only see the ground because that's all they have a shaykhus with. And based on that logic, although this may not be politically correct, but goyim should have also been created on all fours, because they don't have a shaykhus with spirituality, but only are connected to Gashmias, only associated with the earth. However, if they were to be created on all fours, that will interfere with this, that they are also human and have bechira chavshus, so they also walk upright. But the pashtos, only a goy could celebrate a day for earth. But Kemuvan, as they were saying on the radio, that this coronavirus and all these disasters that are happening, and the earth is taking advantage to sort of say get back or protesting on this, that we're not treating the earth properly. I believe there's also an earthquake in California this week. Maybe, I think so. And it's not disasters that you're not making brachas before eating, but they're using, let's say, too much deodorant or a plastic bag when you go to the store. But being that this was brought up, so they said that the viruses and pandemics and all this kind of stuff is the earth protesting. So thinking about this, what would be the Torah's perspective? So there's an interesting Yerushalmi in Brachas. The Yerushalmi tells over a story of a conversation that happened with Reb Nehirai, which the Gemara in Eruvin says is Reb Meir, and Eliyahu HaNavi. And the Gemara says that one time Eliyahu HaNavi encountered Reb Nehirai and Rabbi Meir, and asked Rabbi Meir, Eliyahu HaNavi asked Rabbi Meir, why is it that Eibishter brings earthquakes and volcanoes and all these disasters to the world? So Rabbi Meir answered him, there's two psukim. One pasuk in Tvarim says, Eretz asher havai lekecha deidish leisa tamid, ein havai lekecha ba mireisha sasana ad achri. The Eibishter protects the land from the beginning of the year to the end, the famous pasuk. Then there's another pasuk in Tehillim that it says, another pasuk in Tehillim that says, Hamabit la'aretz v'tirad yiga baharim v'yashenu. That he looks into the world and they shake, and he touches the mountains, and they turn into smoke. So which one is it? Is he going to look in the world? Is he going to go over the world? Or is he going to make volcanoes and disasters? So Meir answered Rabbi Navi and said, one pasuk is talking about when the Yidden separate Trumas and Meisers, then the Eibishter protects the world. But if Chas v'Shalom, there comes a time where Yidden are lax in their observance of Trumas and Meisers, so then there's going to be natural disasters. Achmanu litzlan. So Yoel Navi answered. Rabbi Yoel Navi told Rabbi Meir, "You're right. Your interpretation of the pasuk is accurate. It's correct. But I want to let you in on the inside scoop about this." And he told him something very fascinating. Yoel Navi says that when the Eibishter looks at the world and he sees that the stadiums and the cafes are standing sound and strong, and the beis hamikdash, the Makom hamikdash, lies in ruins, that brings about various different forces that cause destruction to the world. And the Gemara also goes on to explain other reasons. But examining this answer from Yoel Navi seems very strange. Because what does one thing have to do with the other? If the cafes and the stadiums are a problem in and of itself, so that itself is a reason for them to be destroyed. What does that have to do with this, that the beis hamikdash lies in ruins? And if the reason why the Eibishter is bringing disasters to the world is because the beis hamikdash is in ruins, is charav, then what does that have to do with the cafes and the stadiums? So perhaps, based on what we said earlier, this ma'aseh with the Rebbe Maharash, and the whole idea of wealth, we can understand this that Yoel Navi is saying. That what? Obviously, Gashmius in and of itself is not a problem. Because the Eibishter created the stadiums, the Eibishter created the cafes, the Eibishter created the world. Nor then, when the stadiums and the cafes are sound, when it's business as usual, but the beis hamikdash lies in ruins, one's priorities to Yiddishkeit and Torah mitzvahs are sitting on the back burner, you got your priorities not straight. Then the Eibishter says, well, what's going on? People don't have their priorities straight. Then the Eibishter says, this world, you got to shake it up. This world's got to be destroyed, or at the very least, give a hazaza, an earthquake. Chas v'shalom ha'yalesiyah. You got to make a move over here. People have to realize that the volcano. People have to realize that the stadiums and the cafes are important, but only when used. It's not an end to itself. The stadiums and the cafes and business and all dvarim elam, that's just an example. But all my wealth and all my dvarim gashmim are not an end in and of itself. They're only a means to an end. They're only a means to enable me to learn Torah, to do mitzvahs, to create a dirib b'tachteinim, to be made afatzas samayanis, afatzas sayadas. As soon as the gashmius becomes an end in of itself, that's when the Eibishter says, "What's going on over here? Everything is standing strong, but the Makom hamikdash, my own beis hamikdash, that's charav." Similarly, ulei yeshleima. This is also something that was discussed. We could also understand something that was something which, in connection to last week's haftarah, with the story of the Arim being brought back to the Eden. But there's a pasuk over there in Shmuel where David HaMelech tells Nasan HaNavi, Re'einu anechi yeshev bebeis harazim, v'arin alekim yeshev b'seich ariyah. Look, I'm sitting in a palace. It's not right. I'm sitting in a palace, and the Aron is sitting in a temporary place. If you don't belong in the palace, so then get out of the palace. What does that have to do with the Aron sitting somewhere else? And if the problem is that the Aron is somewhere else, what does that have to do with me sitting in a palace? So after again, is my gashmas, me sitting in a palace, is that the end in of itself? Or is that a means to be able to bring the Aron back? So with that said, it's true that the Eibishter wants every single one of us to have gashmis and ashirus b'teichar chava, and we deserve it. Nor then, there comes a time where a person has to look at the calendar and see that today is Earth Day, and look at my own earth, my own gashmius, my own artzius, and see, where am I holding? Where do my priorities lie? Am I focusing too much on the earth? Does my gashmius become an end in of itself? Then it's time for me to make my own hazaza, to give myself my own shake-up. And then not to chas v'shalom zich ankumen to that which the Eibishter is going to make. Not to chas v'shalom to come up to the hazaza the Eibishter is going to make. It's time to make my own earthquake. To give zich hashokol and realign my priorities. Are my gashmius an end in of is my gashmius an end in of itself, or is it only a means to an end which is creating a dirib b'tachteinim? So, l'chaim, you should take a bizeicha to celebrate Earth Day. I know next year I'll definitely make a note of it on the calendar. to reevaluate and assess what are the proportions with our gashmis and our ruchnis. What is our ends and what is our means to an end? And we should take up to the ultimate Earth Day of V'hoya Hashem lemelech akol haaretz bayoim hahu yiyeh Hashem echad ishma yechad. And the beginning of Chodesh Iyar will take us a Chodesh from Refuah and the Avayri Fecha, and not just the Refuah to this machle, but the beis Mashiach Tzedkenu, which will be a Refuah to all our machlas, and the ultimate machle, which is Golus. Mashiach now a good vach.